You did not find this video. This video found you. I know that might sound like something people say, but I want you to stay with it for a moment, because there is a difference between just stumbling onto something and feeling like something was placed in your path. And what is happening right now, in this exact moment with you listening or reading this, does not feel completely random. Not like a simple accident, not like something that just appeared in your feed. And somewhere underneath everything you have been thinking about today, there is already a part of you that recognizes that feeling. Not excitement, not simple curiosity, something quieter than curiosity, something heavier than that. A feeling like recognition, like reading the first line of something you once wrote but forgot about. Something that belongs to you, even if you do not fully remember it yet. You have been carrying something lately. Not the kind of weight that is visible to other people, not the kind that gets noticed or talked about or explained. It is quieter than that. It does not announce itself. It sits behind your chest, steady and constant. The kind of weight you get used to over time, so much that you almost stop noticing it is there. But it shows up in small moments. In the mornings when you wake up and feel it before your thoughts even fully start. In the pauses between tasks, when there is nothing to distract you. In the quiet seconds when everything slows down and it is just you again. And in those moments, there is a truth that becomes harder to avoid. A truth you do not always say out loud. When someone asks how you are, you say fine. But what you mean is something more complicated than that. And the real truth is this. You are tired. Not weak, not broken, not falling apart. Just tired. And there is a very important difference between those things, because the story you may have been telling yourself about your tiredness is not the full story. Not even close. You have been trying, even if it has not been perfect. Even if there were moments where you slipped back into old patterns. Even if there were nights when you felt things you thought you had already moved past. You are still trying. You have been choosing yourself in ways that are small and quiet and often invisible to anyone else. The times you did not send that message, even though part of you wanted to. The mornings you got up when staying in bed would have been easier. The moments when you sat with your own feelings instead of escaping them, instead of distracting yourself, instead of running from the silence. Those choices matter. Even if nobody claps for them, even if nobody sees them, even if they never turn into something you can show to the world as proof. Because they are proof already. And the part of you that feels tired right now is not the part of you that is failing. It is the part of you that has been carrying too much for too long without enough rest. It is the part that kept going even when it was not easy. Even when it felt like moving forward was like walking through something heavy that nobody else could see. That is not nothing. That is not small. That is everything. And I want you to hear this clearly. That weight you feel has been seen, even if it did not feel like anyone noticed. There is something deeper happening inside you than just exhaustion. There is a process unfolding, a change that does not always feel like change while it is happening. There is a deeper part of your mind, your inner world, that is always moving toward balance, even when your thoughts feel confused. It does not wait for permission. It does not wait for you to feel ready. It keeps moving towards something whole inside you. And sometimes, when you are going through something important, life starts to feel like it is filled with strange timing. Moments that feel connected even when you cannot explain how. Thoughts that arrive at the exact time something outside you reflects them back. And your mind tries to label it as coincidence because that feels safer. It feels more logical, easier to accept. But there is another way to experience it. The possibility that your life is not just random pieces happening separately, but something in you is responding to something around you, and life itself feels a little more coordinated than you expected. So let me ask you something. Not something you need to answer out loud, just something to sit with. What have you been trying to figure out alone? Because there is likely something in your life you have been holding quietly in your mind for a long time. Not something you are obsessed with, but something you keep returning to. A situation, a person, a choice, a future you can almost see but not fully reach. You have not given up on it, but you have started to question your own hope. You wonder if holding on to it is wise, or if it is just something you cannot let go of yet. And sometimes you wonder if your hope is helping you or hurting you. But the truth is not so simple. It is not just wisdom or foolishness. It is something in between. You are learning how to tell the difference between hope that supports you and attachment that drains you. And that is not an easy lesson. It does not come in a straight line. It comes with confusion, with setbacks, with moments that feel like you were wrong, followed by moments that feel like you are suddenly seeing clearly again. And you are right in the middle of that process. From the inside, it does not feel like progress. It feels like being stuck, like standing in a doorway and not being able to fully go back, but also not fully move forward. The past still feels familiar, even if it hurt you. The future feels uncertain, even if part of you wants it. And the waiting in between is exhausting. But that space you are in is not a mistake. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is not proof that you are behind in life. It is the process itself. Because real change does not happen in a single moment where everything suddenly makes sense. It happens in tension. It happens when two parts of you exist at the same time. The part that wants to stay safe and the part that wants to grow. The part that remembers and the part that is becoming something new. And holding both at once is uncomfortable. It creates pressure. It creates confusion. It creates the feeling that nothing is moving, even when something deep inside is shifting. That pressure you feel is not a sign of something ending. It is often a sign of something forming. Something new trying to take shape inside you, while the old version of you is still letting go. And letting go is not clean. It is not neat. It does not happen all at once. It happens in layers, slowly, sometimes painfully, sometimes without clear understanding in the moment. And in that space, you are no longer who you were before. But you are not fully who you are becoming yet either. That in-between space is one of the hardest places to live in, because there is no clear map for it, no instructions that fully explain it while you are inside it. You have to move through it without knowing exactly how it ends. But it is not a sign that you are lost. It is a sign that something is forming in you that could not exist without this pressure, without this uncertainty, without this transition. And even if it feels slow, even if it feels unclear, even if some days feel heavier than others, you are still moving through it. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, something is happening. Quietly, deeply, in ways you cannot always see yet. And one day, what feels like confusion now will make sense in a way you cannot fully understand while you are still inside it. But for now, you are here, in the middle, in the process, in the becoming. And even though it may not feel like it, this part matters just as much as everything that comes after it. People in the in-between look fine. They function, they show up, they answer messages, meet responsibilities, laugh at the right moments in conversations, and move through their days in ways that look normal from the outside. And nobody knows. Nobody can see that underneath all of that, there is something else happening. A deep internal shift. A quiet reorganization of everything they thought they knew about themselves. What they deserve. What they are willing to accept. What love is supposed to feel like. What they can no longer carry. And what they can no longer ignore. That reorganization is happening inside you right now. Even if you cannot fully name it, even if you do not fully understand it yet. And it is one of the most important things about where you are. Now I want to talk about the other person, the one you have been thinking about, the one whose name shows up in your mind in moments you do not plan for, in quiet seconds, in random memories, in songs, in places, in words that suddenly feel charged with meaning. I want to talk about them because they are part of this story too. Not the center of it. You are the center of it. But they are inside it, connected to it, shaped by it in ways that are not always visible. And I want you to hear this carefully, especially if the emotional part of you is still loud, especially if the unanswered questions still feel sharp, especially if the silence between you still feels heavy. They are in their own process, a process they did not fully choose, a process they may not fully understand yet, a process that is happening underneath their surface life, beneath the version of themselves they show to the world. And inside that process, there is a gap forming. A gap between who they have been and who they are being asked to become. Between comfort and truth. Between habit and awareness. Between what was easy and what is real. That gap is not something a person closes quickly. It is not something solved by distraction or time alone. It is something that asks for honesty. And honesty is not comfortable. And in that space, something important happens. The parts of life that were once ignored start to speak louder inside them. Not in words they always recognize, not in clear thoughts, but in pressure, in reflection, in discomfort that does not fully go away. And that discomfort begins to point somewhere. And often, without meaning to, it points back to you. Not because you are meant to fix them, not because you are their answer, not because your life is supposed to be paused for their process, but because you represented something real, something that was not just performance, not just routine, not just surface-level connection, something that asked more of them than they were ready to give at the time. And real things do not disappear just because they are no longer active in the present. They stay somewhere inside a person, quiet, unfinished, unresolved. And sometimes they grow in silence. But I need to be very clear with you. This is not a message telling you to wait. This is not a message telling you to hold your life in place. This is not a message telling you that your future depends on someone else becoming ready. That is not what this is. What this is about is you. The version of you that is forming right now. The version of you that is learning how to stand on your own emotional ground without collapsing into waiting. The version of you that is slowly becoming more honest, more grounded, more aware of what you actually need. That version of you is not in competition with love. That version of you is what makes real love possible. Because the truth is, the kind of connection you have been hoping for, the kind that feels steady and mutual and real, cannot exist in a place where you are shrinking yourself to keep it alive. It cannot survive in silence that costs you your own clarity. It cannot grow in a place where you are always questioning your own worth. And you are learning that now. Slowly. Through experience. Through reflection. Through moments that did not go the way you hoped and still taught you something important. There is a process happening inside you that you cannot fully see yet. A restructuring of what you will accept and what you will no longer accept. A shift in what you define as love and what you now recognize as attachment. A separation between what feels familiar and what actually feels right. And that process does not move in a straight line. Some days you feel strong in it. Some days you feel unsure again. Some days you feel like you understand everything, and some days you feel like you understand nothing at all. That is normal in this kind of change. Because what is happening is not just emotional, it is psychological, it is deep, it is reshaping how you relate to yourself and others at the same time. And that is why it feels so intense. That is why it feels like you are in between versions of your own life. Because you are. One version of you is still connected to the past, to what was familiar, to what you hoped would work out in a certain way. And another version of you is beginning to form, a version that is more grounded, more aware, more unwilling to abandon yourself just to keep something else from falling apart. And those two versions do not always agree yet. That is where the tension comes from. That is where the confusion lives. But that tension is not a failure. It is not a mistake. It is part of the transition, because real change does not feel clean. It does not feel organized. It does not arrive with certainty. It arrives as discomfort, as questioning, as silence that forces you to listen more closely to yourself than you ever have before. And in that space, something important is being built inside you, even if you cannot fully describe it yet. Now about the person you are thinking about. What matters most is not what they are thinking right now. What matters most is not what they might realize later. What matters most is not what their process becomes. What matters most is that your life does not stop moving while theirs unfolds. Because your healing cannot depend on their clarity. Your growth cannot depend on their timing. Your emotional stability cannot be built on waiting for someone else to resolve their own internal conflict. That is not how life becomes whole. Your life becomes whole when you begin to return to yourself fully. When your choices are no longer shaped by uncertainty about someone else. When your attention is no longer split between your own becoming and someone else's delay. And that does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the process of caring. Because the version of you that is emerging now is not meant to be paused. It is not meant to be put on hold. It is not meant to exist only in relation to someone else's readiness. It is meant to stand on its own. And something interesting happens when you begin to move into that place. When you stop organizing your life around waiting and start organizing it around becoming. Your energy changes, your clarity changes, your presence changes, and what is aligned with you begins to recognize you differently. Not because you are trying to be found, but because you are no longer lost in someone else's story. And there is a part of you that already knows this. Even if it is quiet, even if it is still developing, even if it only shows up in rare moments of clarity. There is a version of this story where things come together in ways you cannot fully see yet. Not because it is guaranteed, not because outcomes are promised, but because you are changing in a direction that no longer requires you to lose yourself in order to feel connected. And that matters more than anything else in this moment. But I also want to speak to the part of you that is tired, the part that does not think in long explanations, the part that feels everything at night when the world is quiet, the part that replays conversations, the part that wonders if things could have been different, the part that questions whether hope has been too much or not enough. That part is not wrong for feeling what it feels, but it is also not meant to carry everything alone anymore, because there is a difference between holding hope and being held hostage by it. There is a difference between loving something and losing yourself inside the waiting for it. And you are learning that difference right now, slowly, quietly, through experience that is shaping you more than you can see in the moment. And even if it does not feel like it yet, you are not standing still. You are moving through something. You are shedding something. You are becoming something that will make more sense to you later than it does right now. And the most important part is this. You are allowed to become someone who does not wait for clarity from others in order to live your own life clearly. You are allowed to become someone who chooses yourself without needing permission.